Okay guys, tonight we are going to do something a little different. We're not building a business or sailing on a grand voyage. Instead, we are going to become very, very still. We're traveling to ancient Rome to take on one of the most sacred, most honored, and most terrifyingly demanding jobs a woman could have. You are going to become a Vestal virgin. For 30 years, your life will revolve around one single, endless task, keeping a sacred fire from ever going out. It's a life of immense privilege, but also of unimaginable sacrifice. You'll give up your family, your future, and your freedom. And if you fail, well, let's just say you won't get a second chance. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's a quiet little signal that helps this channel immensely. And while you're at it, drop me a comment and let me know what city you're listening from, and what time it is there. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are 7 years old. The world, for you, is the sound of water trickling into the ample UV. I am in the center of your family's atrium, the warmth of the sun and the mosaic tiles, and the smooth, cool feel of the tally sheep knuckle bones in your hand as you toss them for a game with your older brother. Your life is governed by the rhythms of a noble Roman household, lessons with your Greek tutor in the morning, meals with your family, and the comforting presence of your mother, her hands smelling faintly of the lavender she keeps in her clothes chest. Today, the rhythm is broken. Your father, the pater familias, a man whose stern presence commands absolute authority in this house, has told you to put on your best white tunic. He is expecting a visitor of great importance. You don't know who it is, but you can feel the nervous energy in the air. The house slaves are moving more quickly, their voices hushed. Your mother's hands, as she straightens the folds of your tunic, are trembling slightly. You are told to wait by the atrium. Use it on a small stool, your legs dangling, and watch as your father greets the visitor. The man is old, his face a web of deep lines, but he stands tall and straight. He wears a pure white toga and a conical cap that you've only ever seen in pictures. This is the Pontifex Maximus, the high priest of Rome, the most powerful religious figure in the entire city. His eyes, sharp and clear, scan the room and then land on you. He says something to your father in a low voice. Your father nods, his face a strange mask of pride and deep sorrow. He beckons you forward. You walk on trembling legs across the cool floor, the vast, sunlit space of the atrium making you feel very small. You stand before the high priest. He looks you over, not with the warmth of a grandfather, but with the dispassionate eye of a man inspecting a prize horse or a perfect piece of pottery. He asks you to speak your name, to recite a line from the Aeneid your tutor taught you. He is listening to your voice, making sure it is clear and without a lisp or stammer. He gently tilts your face to the light, checking your skin for any blemish. To be chosen, a girl had to be physically perfect. This is a strange and little minus known fact of the selection process. She had to be whole and done, a perfect vessel for a perfect duty. After a moment that stretches into an eternity, he smiles, a thin, formal smile. He places a hand on your head. Then he turns to you and speaks the words that will change your life forever. The words are a formula, a legal and religious phrase that has been spoken for centuries. A motto, he says, using a ritual name. Beloved, Ticapio, I take you. 2 simple words, but they are a formal act of capture. In that moment, you are no longer your father's daughter. You are a daughter of the state, a priestess of Vesta, the goddess of the hearth and home. You belong to Rome now. Your mother lets out a small, choked sob, which she quickly smothers. Your father's jaw is tight. You look back at them, confused. You don't understand the full weight of the words, but you understand the finality in the priest's tone. You are leaving, not for a visit to your aunt's house. You are leaving forever. Historians are still in debate over how Roman families truly felt about this moment. Was it seen as the ultimate honor, a way to elevate the family's status to the highest levels of Roman society, or was it a heartbreaking sacrifice, giving up a beloved child to a life of rigid duty. The truth is likely that it was both. For your parents, the pride of seeing their daughter chosen for Rome's most sacred office is mixed with the bitter reality of losing you. They will be able to visit you, on occasion, but you will never again be a part of their home. You are not given time to pack your dolls or say a proper goodbye to your brother. The priest's attendants step forward. One of them, an older woman in a simple white robe, takes your hand. Her grip is firm but not unkind. You look back one last time at your mother, her face a blur of tears, and at your father, standing as still as a statue. Then you are led out of the atrium, out of the only home you have ever known, into the bustling, noisy street. You have been chosen. Your childhood is over. A new life, a life of silence, service, and endless, watchful duty, is about to begin. You walk through the streets of Rome in a daze. The city you thought you knew, the familiar path to the market, the corner where the storyteller sits looks alien and overwhelming. The noise, the smells, the sheer number of people rushing past feel threatening now that you are unmoored from the anchor of your family. You are a small, white minus-clad figure being led through the heart of the Roman Forum, the civic and spiritual center of the known world. You pass the towering columns of the Temple of Saturn and the imposing facade of the Basilica Julia. Men into gas turn to stir as you pass, their conversations dropping to a respectful murmur. They are not looking at you, the 7-year-old girl. They are looking at what you represent. You are a living symbol of Rome's piety and stability. Your destination is a complex of buildings tucked away at the edge of the Forum, nestled at the foot of the Palatine Hill. That is the Atrium Vestae, the house of the Vestals. This will be your home for the next 30 years. As you pass through the arched entryway, the noise of the Forum abruptly cuts off, replaced by a profound and echoing silence. The house is built around a large, rectangular courtyard, a peristyle garden with a long, serene pool of water at its center. The air here is still and cool. Statues of former Vestals, venerable women who completed their service with honor, line the colonnades. Their marble eyes seem to follow you as you walk, a silent audience of your predecessors, the sheer number of them, stretching back through the centuries, is dizzying. You are the newest link in a very, very long chain. An older woman, one of the senior Vestals, greets you. Her name is Licia, and her face is kind but stern. Her movements are slow, deliberate, and imbued with an unshakable calm. She leads you through the complex. It is a large, self-contained world. There are kitchens, storerooms, bathing facilities, and your own small, simple bedroom, or cubiculum. It is comfortable, even luxurious by the standards of most Romans, but it feels cold and impersonal compared to the familiar warmth of your room at home. But the heart of this place, its entire reason for being, is not in the house itself. Licia leads you from the residence into an adjoining building. It is a small, round temple, the Temple of Vesta. Unlike the grand, rectangular temples to the other gods, this one feels ancient, humble, almost primal. Its shape is meant to evoke the traditional round huts of the earliest Romans. You step inside. The air is warm and thick with the smell of wood smoke, incense, and something else, an almost electric charge of sanctity. The room is circular, and there are no windows. The only light comes from the single, flickering flame that burns in the center of the room on a stone hearth. This is it, the sacred fire of Vesta, the eternal flame. You stare into it, mesmerized. It is not a roaring bonfire, but a steady, healthy, golden flame. It dances and sways, casting flickering shadows on the curved walls. This flame, you have been taught, is the symbolic heart of every Roman home, and by extension, the heart of Rome itself. As long as it burns, the city will stand. If it goes out, disaster will befall the Republic. Its presence is overwhelming. It feels alive. You can feel its heat on your face, hear its soft, continuous crackle. It is not just a fire, it is a deity. Vesta has no statue, no human minus-like image like the other gods. This flame is the goddess, your life. From this moment on, is dedicated to her. Licen's voice is soft beside you. She is your mother now. She says, your sister, your daughter. She is your only duty. You will learn her moods, her needs. You will learn to feed her, to clean her heart, to keep her safe. You will never, ever let her die. The weight of those words settles on your small shoulders. You are 7 years old, and you have just been given a responsibility that would crush most grown men. The fate of an empire rests on your ability to keep this small fire alive. Historians have long debated the symbolic meaning of this eternal flame. For some, it's a simple link back to a time before matches, where communal, constantly burning fire was a practical necessity for survival. For others, it represents the continuity of the Roman state, an unbroken line stretching back to the city's mythical founding by Romulus. There's also a deeply philosophical reading. The fire represents life and civilization, a small point of warmth and light held against the vast, cold darkness of chaos and barbarism. Whatever its ultimate meaning, for the Romans, its power was absolute and unquestioned. You learn that the fire is tended in shifts. Around the clock, the Vestals are always on watch, even in the dead of night. They do not sleep in the temple, but they must be close enough to respond to the fire's every flicker and sigh. For the first 10 years of your service, you will be a novice, a student. You will not be given the responsibility of the watch itself, but you will learn everything there is to know about it. You will learn which woods burn clean a stoke is best, how to stack the logs to ensure a steady supply of air, and how to gently sweep the ashes from the hearth without disturbing the embers. You look around the small, round temple. There is no door in the traditional sense, only an entryway that is always open, shielded from the elements by a curtain. The safety of the flame relies not on locks and bolts, but on the constant, vigilant presence of its keepers. It is a fragile, demanding, and all-minus consuming duty. You feel a thrill of terror mixed with a strange sense of purpose. Your small life, which yesterday was filled with games and lessons, now has a single, solemn focus. You are a keeper of the flame. The first few weeks are a blur of new routines and quiet instructions. The grandeur and terror of your arrival slowly give way to a structured, almost monastic daily life. You learn the names of the other 5 Vestals. There are always 6 of them to young novices like yourself, 2 serving priestesses in the middle of their term, and the senior matrons who act as teachers and administrators. You are a family of women, a household dedicated to a single, silent purpose. Your formal induction into this new life takes place in a grand and solemn ceremony. Your long childhood hair, a source of vanity for any Roman girl, is ceremonial cut off. The shorn locks are hung from a sacred tree as an offering, a symbol of your lost girlhood. You are then dressed in the full, formal attire of a Vestal, a long white woolen tunic, a special headdress of 6 woven plates called the Sirines, and a white veil known as the Suffi Biulum. The clothes are heavy and archaic, designed to set you apart from every other woman in Rome. You are led into the temple, where the Pontifex Maximus and the other high priests are gathered. In front of the sacred flame, you are asked to recite the vow. It is a promise you have been practicing for weeks, and the Latin words feel heavy and momentous on your tongue. You vow to serve Vesta, goddess of the hearth. You vow to remain chaste and pure for the 30 years of your service. You vow to uphold all the sacred duties of your office, chief among them the tending of the eternal fire. You understand, even at your young age, that this is not a promise to be made lightly. It is an iron-clad contract, binding your body and soul to the state. Breaking it is not just a sin, it is treason. After the vow, the Pontifex Maximus formally grants you the privileges of your office, and they are extraordinary. You are now legally independent, a status almost unheard of for a Roman woman. You are no longer under the authority of your father, or any man. You can own property, write your own will, and give testimony in court without a male guardian. When you travel through the city, you will be preceded by a lictor, an official attendant who clears the way in honor usually reserved for the highest magistrates. Everyone, even the consuls of Rome, must make way for you. If you happen to meet a criminal being led to execution, You have the power to grant him an instant pardon. These privileges are a constant source of discussion for historians. Why was this small group of women granted such immense legal and social power? Some argue it was a practical necessity to carry out their duties, which included managing vast temple estates and finances. They needed legal autonomy. Others see a deeper symbolic meaning. As perpetual virgins, they existed in a unique social space, neither unmarried girls nor wives. They were outside the normal patriarchal structure, and so a special legal category had to be created for them. They were, in essence, married to the state itself. But as you stand there, a small child draped in heavy ceremonial robes, these privileges feel abstract. The only thing that feels real is the 30-year timeline stretching out before you like an endless road. 10 years to learn, 10 years to serve, 10 years to teach. It is a lifetime. You will be a middle-aged woman of 30-7 before you are released from your vow. The thought is too vast for your mind to grasp. After the ceremony, there is a feast. Your family is there. Your mother and father. Your brother. They look at you with a mixture of awe and distance. You are their daughter. But you are also something other now. A priestess. A public figure. You sit at the place of honor, but you feel a profound sense of isolation. Their world of family dinners, sibling squabbles, and future marriages is no longer yours. You belong to the silent, watchful world of the flame. The night, back in your small, playing tuberculum, the reality of your promise sinks in. The vow of chastity, in particular, is a heavy burden. You are from a noble family. You would have been expected to make a good marriage, to form an alliance with another powerful family, to bear children who would carry on your family's name. All of that is gone. You have sacrificed your future lineage for the spiritual lineage of Vestae. There is a strange and often misunderstood detail about the Vestals' vow. While they were sworn to chastity for their 30 years of service, they were free to marry after their term was complete. A former Vestal, a woman in her late 30s or early 40s, was a highly prestigious match. However, historical records show that very few chose to do so. After a lifetime of immense privilege, honor, and independence, the thought of submitting to the authority of a husband, or becoming a typical Roman matrone, was perhaps unappealing. Many chose to remain within the orbit of the temple, living out their days as revered and independent women. But that is 30 years away. For now, you are at the very beginning. The excitement and fear of the day leave you exhausted. You lie on your simple bed and listen to the faint, ever-present sounds of the city outside your cloistered walls. But another sound is closer, more persistent. It is the soft, rhythmic sweeping from the direction of the temple. It is the sound of the senior Vestal on watch, tuning the hearth. It is the sound of your future. It is a quiet, constant reminder of the promise you have just made, a promise that will define every day of your life for the next 3 decades. Your education begins the very next day. It is not an education of books and scrolls, but of action, observation, and silence. Your teacher is Fabia, one of the senior Vestals, a woman in her late 20s who has been serving for 2 decades. Her face is serene, but her eyes miss nothing. She moves with an economy of motion that speaks of years of ritual practice. Your first lesson is simply to watch. You follow Flavia into the round temple, taking care to stand where she indicates, out of the way of the sacred space around the hearth. The air is warm, and you can feel the constant, living presence of the fire. Flavia's task this hour is to feed the flame. It is not a simple matter of tossing logs onto the fire. Every step is a precise, practiced ritual. First, she approaches the hearth with a slow, deliberate pace. Her hands are empty. She never turns her back on the flame. She kneels on the stone floor, her posture one of deep reverence. For a long moment, she simply watches the fire, her head bowed. You realize she is not just looking. She is reading. She is reading the height of the flames, the color of the embers, the way the smoke rises. She is assessing its needs as a mother would assess a sleeping child. Then, she rises and goes to a neat stack of oak logs stored in a dry alcove. The wood, you learn, especially selected. It must be from a fruit-bearing tree, a symbol of life and fertility. It must be perfectly seasoned, to burn cleanly without spitting or producing excessive smoke. She chooses 2 logs of a specific size, using a pair of long, bronze tongues. She places them on the fire. The placement is not random. It is a careful arrangement, designed to allow air to circulate freely, ensuring a steady, even burn. The fire seems to sigh in contentment, the new wood catching quickly on burning with a bright, clear flame. Your next lesson is cleaning. The hearth of Vesta must be immaculate, but the ashes, which contain the embers, the seed of the fire, are sacred. They cannot be simply swept away and discarded. Flavia shows you how to use a small, soft brush made of horsehair to gently sweep the loose, grey ash away from the glowing core of embers. The ash is collected in a bronze pan. Later, it will be carried in a solemn procession and deposited in the Tiber River. Nothing that touches the goddess can be treated as common refuse. These tasks, which seem simple on the surface, are imbued with 1,000 tiny, unwritten rules. You must never let the shadow of your own body fall upon the flame. You must never speak while tending the hearth, unless it is a whispered prayer. You must never allow any impure object, a piece of leather, a scrap of leftover food to even enter the temple. The sanctity of the space is absolute. The most difficult lesson is learning the rhythm of the night watch. Though you will not stand the watch yourself for many years, you must understand it. Flavia explains that the night is divided into 4 watches. The Vestals are on duty for each watch. One actively tends the fire, while the other sits, alert and awake, in a nearby chair. They are there to support each other, to ensure no one is ever truly alone with the immense responsibility. The greatest enemy on the night watch, Flavia tells you, her voice a low whisper, is not an intruder or a sudden gust of wind. It is sleep. She explains the various techniques the Vestals have developed over the centuries to fight off exhaustion. They chew on bitter herbs. They stand and walk in circles within the temple. They dip their faces in a basin of cold, sacred water. The struggle against sleep is a silent, nightly battle, fought by every Vestal who has ever served. Historians have often wondered about the practicalities of this. How did they manage it? Year after year? The answer likely lies in a combination of intense discipline, shared responsibility, and a diet that was probably quite simple and light. There's a curious but unsubstantiated theory that the Vestals may have practiced a form of polyphasic sleep, taking short naps during the day to prepare for their broken sleep at night. While there's no direct evidence for this, it speaks to the immense physiological challenge they face. One afternoon, Flavia gives you a simple, though profound, dose. She hands you a small bronze pot and asks you to polish it. It is one of the vessels used to carry oil for the temple lamps. As you sit in the courtyard, rubbing the vessel with a soft cloth and a mixture of fine and oil, you begin to understand the deeper lesson. Your life here will be one of endless, repetitive, and often mundane tasks, polishing the bronze, grinding the sacred grain, weaving the woolen wicks for the lamps. But the purpose of these tasks is not just to get them done. The purpose is in the doing itself. The repetition is a form of meditation. It quiets the mind, stills the chattering ego, and focuses your entire being on the present moment, on the simple act of service. It is a discipline designed to transform you, over years and decades, from a frightened child into a serene and steadfast priestess. Your work is not just to keep a fire burning in a temple. It is to cultivate a similar fire, a steady, unwavering flame of devotion within your own soul. As you polish, you see your own distorted reflection in the curving bronze. It is the face of a stranger, a girl in a strange headdress, her expression serious and focused. You barely recognize yourself. You are no longer the girl who played with knuckle bones in her father's Atrium. You are becoming a Vestal. Years pass. The initial strangeness of the Atrium Vestae fades into the familiarity of home. The 30-year promise, once an impossibly vast ocean of time, has resolved into a series of days, each governed by the same steady rhythm of ritual and duty. You are no longer a novice. You have passed your 17th birthday, and with it, You have entered the second decade of your service. You are now a full priestess. This means you will finally take your place in the rotation for the night watch. The knowledge comes to you not as a formal announcement, but as a simple posting on a wooden board in the residence hall. The schedule for the coming month is written in neat charcoal letters, and there, next to the third watch of the night, on the first day of the week, is your name. A cold dread, unlike anything you have ever felt before, seeps into your bones. It's a feeling far worse than the day you were taken from your family. This is not a passive event happening to you. This is an active responsibility you must now shoulder. For 10 years, you have watched, learned, and practiced. You can stack the old clogs perfectly. You know how to read the whispers and sighs of the flame. You have rehearsed every step of the ritual 1,000 times in your mind. But practice is not performance. The senior Vestals, women who have stood this watch for a decade or more, seem to carry the duty with an effortless grace. Their calm, which you once found so reassuring, now seems impossibly distant. How can they be so serene when the fate of Rome rests on their shoulders every night? You find yourself replaying all the cautionary tales you have heard whispered in the cloisters, stories of near-minus disasters from centuries past. The time a sudden, freak gust of wind from a summer storm almost extinguished the flame. The time an novice, fetching a log, stumbled and almost knocked over the hearth. And the most terrifying story of all, the one they rarely speak of the time, long ago, when the flame actually did go out. According to the legend, the entire city fell into a state of panic. All business ceased. The Senate was convened in an emergency session. The temples were closed. It was as if the city's heart had stopped beating. The Vestal on watch, whose name is never mentioned, was held responsible for the catastrophic omen. The fire had to be ceremonial and laboriously re-lit, not with a torch or another flame, but through the primitive method of friction, by rubbing two sticks of wood together until a spark was born. It was a humiliating and terrifying process, a return to a more primitive age, forced upon them by a moment of negligence. The punishment for the Vestal whose negligence allowed the fire to die was severe. She would be taken to a darkened room and scourged by the Pontifex Maximus. It was a punishment that was both a physical penance and a deep ritual humiliation, as the body of a Vestal was considered sacred and inviolable. This fear begins to haunt your waking thoughts and your dreams. You have nightmares where you are on watch and the flame begins to sputter, its golden light shrinking to a tiny, blue flicker. You rush to save it, but your limbs feel heavy, as if you are moving through water. You watch, helpless, as the last ember winks out, plunging the temple and the world into a terrifying, absolute darkness. You wake up with your heart pounding, the cold sweat of fear on your skin. You try to speak of your fear to Flavia, who is now one of the revered senior Vestals. She listens patiently, her expression calm and unreadable. Every one of us feels this fear. Lamotta, she says, using your ritual name. It is a part of the office. The fear is what keeps you vigilant. It is a tool, not an enemy. Do not fight it. Acknowledge it, and then let it sharpen your senses. Trust your training. Trust the goddess. You are not ready because you are no longer afraid. You are ready because you have learned to live with the fear. Her words are wise, but they offer little comfort. The fear is a cold, heavy knot in your stomach. As the day of your first watch approaches, you find it hard to eat. Your hands tremble when you try to perform your daily tasks. The historical reality of this psychological pressure is hard to overstate. These were young women, often still in their teens, given a responsibility that was both spiritually and politically immense. The constant, low-minus level anxiety, the sleep deprivation, and the profound isolation must have taken a significant toll. Some historians speculate that the rigid structure and repetitive, meditative tasks of their daily lives were not just for religious purposes, but were a kind of psychological coping mechanism, a way to manage an almost unbearable level of stress. The night of your watch arrives, the sun sets, and the familiar sounds of the Forum fade into the quiet hum of the Roman night. You put on your robes, your fingers feeling clumsy as you fasten the clasp. You walk with the other Vestal on your watch, a woman a few years your senior named Octavia. Towards the temple, the air is cool. The stars are brilliant in the moonless sky. You enter the temple. The Vestals from the previous watch greet you with a silent nod. The transfer of duty is wordless. They step away from the hearth, and you and Octavia step forward. The flame is burning brightly, a steady and reassuring presence, but in your eyes, it looks fragile, vulnerable. It is a tiny point of light against the infinite darkness of the night, and for the next 3 hours, its survival depends entirely on you. The temple is a different world at night. During the day, it is a place of quiet reverence, but it is still connected to the bustling life of the forum just outside. At night, it becomes an island of silence, a sacred space suspended in the darkness. The only sounds are the soft crackle of the fire and the whisper of your own breath. You take the first half of the walk. Your partner, Octavia, sits in the carved wooden chair behind you, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes open and alert. She is your backup, your silent witness. Your station is on a small, 3-legged stool near the hearth, close enough to feel the warmth, close enough to act in an instant. Every nerve in your body is on high alert. Your senses are magnified. You hear the tiny hiss of sap in a burning log. You see the way a draft, so faint you can't even feel it on your skin, makes the flame dance and sway for a moment. You smell the subtle shift in the aroma of the smoke as a log burns down to its core. You are not just watching the fire, you are in communion with it. The first hour passes in a state of hyper-minus vigilance. You are so focused, so terrified of failure, that you barely move. Your back aches from the tension in your muscles. You stare at the flame until your eyes burn, seeing phantom shapes flicker at the edge of your vision. As the flame shrinking, was that crackle a sign of instability? Your mind plays tricks on you, turning every small variation into a potential catastrophe. You remember Flavia's words, the fear is a tool. You try to use it. You channel the nervous energy into a state of heightened awareness. No panic. You begin to consciously relax your shoulders, to breathe in a slow, steady rhythm. You start to perform the small, routine tasks of the watch. You take a soft cloth and wipe a smudge of soot from the stone surround of the hearth. You check the supply of oak logs, ensuring they are dry and ready. These small, familiar actions are grounding. They are anchors in a sea of anxiety. As the second hour begins, a strange feeling settles over you. It is the profound, almost unnerving, sense of being alone at the center of a sleeping world. Outside these temple walls, the entire city of Rome is asleep. Senators and slaves, merchants and soldiers, all are lost in their dreams. But here, you are awake. You are the city as vigilant, sleeping hard. The thought is both terrifying and strangely empowering. You are not just a girl watching a fire. You are a guardian, a sentinel. This feeling of immense, solitary importance was central to the Vestals' identity. They were revered, but they were also fundamentally isolated. They could not share the common experiences of other women, marriage, motherhood, the daily life of a family household. Theirs was a life apart. Some historians argue that this isolation was key to their sacred power. By being separate from society, they could act as pure intermediaries between the human world and the divine. They belonged to neither, and so could serve both. Suddenly, a sound from outside breaks the silence. It's the heavy, rhythmic tread of the night patrol of the Vigiles Urbani, the city's firemen and police. You hear their footsteps on the cobblestones of the forum, the clank of their armor, a low minus-voiced command. They are another set of guardians, watching over the city's physical safety, while you watch over its spiritual soul. The sound is a brief, comforting reminder that you are not entirely alone in the darkness. Then, Octavia silently rises from her chair. It is the halfway point of your walk. It is her turn to sit on the stool, and your turn to be the silent supporter in the chair. You switch places wordlessly. The relief of stepping away from the immediate responsibility of the hearth is immense. Your muscles ache as you sink into the chair. From this new vantage point, you watch Octavia. You see the same focused intensity in her posture that you felt in yourself. you realize that she, too, is fighting her own battle with fear and exhaustion. You are not alone in your anxiety. You are two links in a chain, supporting each other in a silent, shared struggle. There is a little minus known, a rather poignant detail found in some of the archaeological excavations of the house of the Vestals. They found small, personal items in the living quarters, a simple bone hairpin, a fragment of a decorated cosmetic box. These small artifacts are a reminder that behind the solemn public robe and the heavy ceremonial robes, these were real women. They had moments of private vanity, of personal taste. It's easy to see them as just symbols. But they live, breathe, and, in the dead of night, feared, just like anyone else. The rest of the watch passes slowly. The urge to sleep becomes a heavy, physical weight, pulling at your eyelids. You straighten your back, focus on your breathing, and watch Octavia watch the flame. When the first faint hint of grey appears in the sky and the next pair of Vestals arrives to relieve you, you feel a wave of exhaustion so profound it almost makes you dizzy. You have done it. You have survived your first watch. The flame still burns. Rome is safe. You walk back to your small room as the city begins to stir. You have never felt so tired, and you have never felt so proud. The terror of the first night watch eventually softens, not into complacency, but into a familiar, manageable weight. The tending of the fire becomes the central rhythm of your life, but it is not your only duty. The life of a Vestal is a tapestry woven from many threads of ritual, and one of the most important and laborious of these is the daily task of fetching the sacred water. The fire of Vesta, being pure, could only be nourished by pure elements. The wood had to be from a living tree, and the water used for the temple's daily purification rituals had to be living water, that is. Water drawn from a running spring or stream. It could not be water that had passed through the city's impressive network of pipes and aqueducts. The Romans, masters of hydraulic engineering, believed that piped water, for all its convenience, was dead. It had been captured, confined, and stripped of its natural spirit. So every single morning, two of the junior Vestals are tasked with fetching water from a sacred spring. Today, the duty falls to you and a quiet girl named Elia. The task begins shortly after sunrise. You don't use a common bucket or amphora. You carry a special vessel called a futilis. It is a beautifully crafted earthenware jar, but it has a peculiar and intentionally impractical design. The base is rounded and comes to a small point, meaning it cannot be set down on the ground. If you try to rest it, it will tip over and spill its contents. You and Elia walk out of the quiet sanctuary of the house of the Vestals and into the waking city. The Alicitor, your official attendant, walks before you, his bundle of rods, the Theodosius, resting on his shoulder. At the sight of him, and of your distinctive white robes and headdress, the morning crowds part before you. Carts laden with produce stop in their tracks. Senators on their way to the Curia give a respectful nod. You walk through the city in a bubble of infrastructure. It is a strange and isolating experience. You are in the world, but not of it. Your destination is the spring of Juturne, located just a few paces from your own temple in the Forum. It is a place of ancient sanctity, believed to be the spot where the divine twins, Castor and Pollux, watered their horses after bringing news of a great Roman victory. The water bubbles up from the ground into a deep, stone-lined basin. It is cool, clear, and considered to be among the purest in Rome. You kneel by the edge of the spring. The stone is cold and damp beneath your knees. You dip your futilis into the water, filling it to the brim. The moment you lift it, the challenge begins. The jar is heavy, and its awkward shape makes it difficult to carry. You have to hold it constantly, cradling it in your arms. There is no setting it down for a moment to rest your aching muscles. The purpose of this strange vessel is a subject of much debate among scholars. Some see it as a purely practical, if harsh, method of ensuring the purity of the water. By making it impossible to set down, it guaranteed that the water would be carried directly from the spring to the temple, with no chance of it being contaminated or used for any other purpose along the way. Others see it deeper. symbolic meaning. The Futilius was a two-love discipline. It was a constant, physical reminder of the nature of your duty, a task that could never be set aside, a vigilance that could never be relaxed. To be a Vestal was to carry a weight that could not be put down. You and Delia begin the short walk back to the temple. It is only 100 paces, but with the heavy, sloshing jaws, it feels like a mile. Your arms burn with the effort. You focus on walking slowly and smoothly, trying not to stumble on the uneven paving stones. A single misstep would mean spilling the sacred water, forcing you to begin the entire arduous task again. It is a lesson in mindfulness, enforced by the very design of the object in your hands. This ritual highlights a core principle of Roman religion. Purity, or chastity, was not just a matter of sexual abstinence. It was a comprehensive state of being that involved cleanliness, dietary restrictions, and the avoidance of physical and spiritual contamination, especially from death. The Vestals, as the most sacred of all priestesses, had to maintain an almost impossible standard of purity. This is why, for instance, the Vestal could not be touched by a physician, as his hands were often contaminated by contact with the sick and dying. You finally arrive back at the temple. Your arms are shaking with fatigue. You carefully pour the water from your refuse into a larger storage vessel within the temple grounds. The feeling of relief as you set the empty, and now blessedly light, jar down is immense. This water will be used for everything. It will be used to ritually sprinkle the temple floor each morning, cleansing it of any lingering spiritual impurity from the night. It will be used to make the sacred bread. It will be used by the Vestals themselves for their ablutions. It is the lifeblood of the temple's sanctity, and you have just spent your morning providing it. As you rub your aching arms, you look at the fire, burning steadily on its hearth. It is a symbol of life and warmth. Then you realize that you, with your jar of spring water, are a part of that symbolism. You are the living stream, bringing the cool, pure essence of the natural world to serve the sacred, civilizing flame. It is another piece of the great, complex puzzle of your duties, another thread in the tapestry of your consecrated life. After the water is fetched and the temple is cleansed, another of your daily duties begins. It is a task that is less physically demanding than carrying the Futilius, but it is even more repetitive, a slow, grinding ritual that forms the backdrop to much of your life in the Atrium Vestae. It is the preparation of the molus ulcer. Molus ulcer translates to salted flour, but it is much more than that. It is a course meal, made from the first ears of emmer wheat harvested each spring, mixed with salt, and prepared with exacting ritual precision by you and your sister Vestals. This simple-minded sounding mixture is one of the most fundamental substances in all of Roman state religion. A pinch of molus ulcer was sprinkled on the head of nearly every sacrificial animal before it was killed, and it was used as an offering in countless other ceremonies. Without it, the official religious machinery of Rome would grind to a halt, and you are its sole manufacturers. The process begins in the vast kitchens and workrooms of the house of the Vestals. The emmer wheat, a hardy ancient grain, is brought to you in sheaves. First, you must toast the grains. This is done on a wide, flat clay and over a carefully controlled fire. You stir the grains constantly with a wooden paddle, ensuring they are evenly browned but not burnt. The air fills with a warm, nutty aroma. Then comes the grinding. You don't use a large, efficient rotary quern like a commercial baker would. That would be too easy, too profane. You use a small, simple stone hand minus mill, a pestle and mortar, the same kind of tool your earliest ancestors would have used. You take a handful of the toasted grains and begin to grind, a circular, rhythmic motion of stone against stone. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The sound becomes a part of the house's ambient noise. It is a constant, meditative hum, the sound of ritual work being done. You sit on a low stool, the stone bowl held steady between your knees, and you grind. Your mind is free to wander, but your body is anchored to the task. It is a form of active meditation, a prayer offered not with words, but with the steady labor of your hands. You work alongside the other junior Vestals. You do not speak. The work is done in a companionable silence, each of you lost in the rhythm of your own grinding. Sometimes, a senior Vestal will quietly sing an ancient, hymn-like chant, her voice rising and falling in a strange, archaic melody. The music is not for entertainment. It is to keep the rhythm, to consecrate the work. Once the flour is ground to the correct coarseness, it is mixed with salt. The salt, too, is specially prepared, pounded from large, pure crystals. The mixture is then stored in earthenware jars, ready to be dispensed to the various priests and magistrates who come to the temple to request it for their ceremonies. The sheer quantity of molus salsa you have to produce is staggering. The Roman state had a packed calendar of religious festivals and sacrifices. You are, in essence, running a small, sacred factory. This duty underscores a key aspect of the Vestals' role that is often overlooked. They were not just contemplative priestesses. They were producers of a vital ritual commodity. Their role was both spiritual and deeply practical. Historians have long pondered the significance of this specific mixture. Why salted flour? The salt was a symbol of purity and preservation, a substance that wards off decay. The grain was a symbol of civilization, of agriculture, of the settled life that separated Romans from nomadic barbarians. Combining them created a substance that represented the very essence of a pure, stable, and divinely favored society. By preparing it, you are not just making a ritual ingredient, you are symbolically reproducing the foundations of Roman civilization, day after day. There is a peculiar detail in the historical sources about this process. The Vestals were supposed to use grain from the very first harvest of the year. This created a logistical challenge. How do you ensure you have enough molus salsa for the entire year when you only get one fresh supply? The answer is that a portion of the grain had to be stored, kept pure and safe from damp and vermin, for many months. The management of these sacred granaries was another of the Vestals' hidden, practical responsibilities. It required foresight, planning, and meticulous organization. As you grind the grain, your mind settles. The anxieties of the night watch, the physical strain of carrying the water, they all seem to fade away into the steady, repetitive motion of your hands. The molus also is a different kind of duty. The fire is a constant, pressing vigilance against disaster. The water is a daily struggle against gravity. The grain is a slow, patient, and endless act of creation. You look down at your hands. They are becoming strong and calloused from the work. They are no longer the soft hands of a noble's daughter. They are the capable hands of a priestess, a worker in the service of the gods. You feel a quiet satisfaction in the task. You are not just grinding flour. You are grinding away your own rough edges, your own impatience, your own childish desires. You are slowly, grain by grain, becoming as steady, as patient, and as essential as the substance you are creating. Your world is the house of the Vestals, a cloistered, sacred space governed by ritual and silence. But it is not a prison. It sits at the very heart of Rome, and from its privileged vantage point, you have a unique window onto the chaotic, vibrant life of the city. The Atrium Vestae has a large, upper-story gallery that overlooks the Roman Forum. This is not a public space. It is for the Vestals alone. From here, shielded from the sun by a tiled roof and from view by fine lattice screens, you can watch the entire drama of Roman public life unfold below you. It is your private theatre box, and the play is never minus ending. You see the daily procession of Roman life. In the morning, the lawyers and merchants hurry across the cobblestones to the basilicas, their voices a low hum. You see senators in their white togas with the broad purple stripe, walking with a slow, dignified pace towards the curia, the Senate house, their faces serious with the business of the empire. You see moneylenders setting up their tables, their scales glinting in the sun. You see farmers from the countryside, their faces weathered and brown, selling produce from makeshift stalls. Sometimes, the forum is the stage for a grand spectacle. You watch as a triumphant general leads his victorious legion through the square, the disciplined tramp of the soldiers' hobnailed sandals, the glint of their standards, the roar of the crowd that sounds wash over you. a wave of patriotic fervor. You see the captured chieftains, sullen and chained, paraded before the cheering populace. You see the immense wagons of loot, piled high with gold, silver, and precious artworks from conquered lands. From your serene, removed position, you witness the raw, often brutal, expansion of Roman power. At other times, the Forum is a place of political turmoil. You watch a charismatic politician, perhaps a Gracchus or a Clodius, stand on the rostra, the speaker's platform, and whip the crowd into a frenzy with a fiery speech. You can't hear the words, but you can see the passion in his gestures, the angry energy of the mob swaying and shouting below. You see scuffles break out, turning into small riots that are quickly dispersed by the city guards. You are a silent witness to the turbulent, often violent, politics of the late Republic. This unique position, both central and detached, gave the Vestals an unparalleled perspective on Roman society. They were insiders, privy to the highest levels of state ceremony, yet they were also outsiders, set apart by their sacred vows. Historians often lament the fact that no Vestal ever wrote a memoir. Their observations, their opinions on the powerful men they saw every day, would be a historical treasure beyond price. But their life was one of service, not of self-minus expression. Their stories remain untold. From your perch, you also become a connoisseur of religious ceremony. You watch the various priestesses perform their rites at the other temples that dot the Forum. You see the Flamandiles, the high priest of Jupiter, with his own set of strange, ancient taboos, making his slow, ritual procession. You see the haruspices, the diviners, examining the entrails of a sacrificed animal, their faces grim as they search for omens from the gods. You notice the subtle differences in their rituals compared to your own, the different chants, the different gestures. You realize that Roman religion is not a single, monolithic thing, but a complex ecosystem of ancient traditions, each with its own history and purpose. There's a little minus known detail about the Vestals' public appearances that highlights their unique status. On certain festival days, they were given seats of honor at the public games in the Colosseum or the Circus Maximus. Imagine the sight in the midst of the roaring, bloodthirsty crowd, a small, serene island of white robed women, watching the gladiatorial combat or the chariot races with a calm, priestly detachment. Their presence was a sacred stamp of approval on the proceedings, a reminder that even these brutal entertainments were, at their core, a part of the state's religious life. But for all the drama you witness, you are always separated from it by the screen. You can see, but you cannot participate. You see families laughing together, young lovers steering a glance, old friends arguing politics. You see the full, messy, vibrant spectrum of human life, a life you can never have. A feeling of wistful longing sometimes washes over you, a desire to step out from behind the screen, to walk in the crowd not as a living symbol, but as an anonymous woman. It is a fleeting feeling, always pushed away by the weight of your duty. You are not a spectator, you are a pillar. Your role is not to participate in the chaos, but to provide the stable, sacred center around which that chaos can safely revolve. You turn away from the screen, from the noise and the color of the Forum, and walk back towards the inner sanctum of your home. You walk back to the silent, waiting presence of the flame. It is a constant, steady warmth, a silent rebuke to the fleeting passions and temporary dramas of the world outside. The play in the Forum is exciting, but you know that your work, the quiet, endless, and unseen work of the temple, is what truly matters. Life in the house of the Vestals is one of serene, predictable routine, but beneath the calm surface, there is an undercurrent of immense pressure. The consequences of failure are absolute, and the memory of those who failed is a constant, unspoken warning. One evening, as you are sitting with the other junior Vestals, listening to one of the senior matrons recount a story from Rome's early history, the conversation takes a somber turn. The matron, a woman named Cornelia who has served for nearly 30 years and is close to retirement, begins to speak of the vows. The vow of service to the goddess is a sacred shield, she says, her voice slow and steady. It protects you. It elevates you. But it is a shield that you must hold up with your own strength. If you let it fall, it will not protect you. It will crush you. Hey, young novice, her face pale in the lamplight, asks the question that is on everyone's mind, but that no one dares to speak aloud. Has anyone, in living memory, let the shield fall? A deep silence falls over the room. The other senior Vestals look at Cornelia. Their faces grin. Cornelia's eyes, the long, heavy sound. There was one, she says, when I was a novice, as young as you are now. Her name was Post-UMIA. The story unfolds, told in hushed, cautionary tones. Post-UMIA was a Vestal in the middle of her service. She was beautiful, charming, and perhaps a little too fond of the worldly attention she received. Her official robes were always of the finest linen. Her conversation a little too witty and clever. She began to neglect the small, meditative duties, finding them dull. She saw her position not as a sacred trust, a life of service, but as a platform for personal prestige. Then, the rumors started. Whispers that she was meeting a man in secret, a young, handsome nobleman from a powerful family. The charge was Incestum. The word literally means unchaste, but in the context of a Vestal, it was a crime of catastrophic proportions. A Vestal's purity was not her own. It was a sacred asset of the Roman state. For her to break her vow was to pollute the very soul of the city, to endanger the Pax Deorum, the peace between gods and men. It was a form of spiritual treason. The Pontifex Maximus convened a trial. Post-UMIA denied everything, of course, but the evidence, the whispers, the circumstantial details, were enough. She was found guilty. The punishment for incestum was one of the most chilling and bizarre rituals in all of Roman law. The fallen Vestal was not to be killed by the sword or by strangulation. Her blood was sacred and could not be shed. So, a terrible, alternative sentence was devised. Cornelia's voice dropped to a barely audible whisper. They took her to the campus as US, the evil field, just inside the city walls. There, they had built a small, underground chamber. Inside, there was a simple bed, a lit lamp, and a small amount of food and water enough for a single day. Post-UMIA was dressed in funeral robes and carried through the silent, mourning city in a covered litter, as if she were already dead. At the evil field, the Pontifex Maximus offered a final, quiet prayer. Then, Post-UMIA was forced to descend a ladder into the underground room. The ladder was pulled up, and the entrance was sealed with her. She was buried alive. The silence in the room is absolute. You can hear the blood pounding in your ears. The horror of the story is sickening. It is a death designed with a terrifying, legalistic precision. They did not actively kill her, they simply left her in a tomb to die, preserving the legal fiction that they had not shed her sacred blood. Her lover, the nobleman, was punished more directly. He was taken to the Forum and scourged to death in a public spectacle. This practice, while rare, is well minus attested in the historical sources of Livy and Plutarch. It was the state's ultimate sanction, a brutal demonstration of the supreme importance of the Vestalis vow. The debate among historians is whether this was a punishment that was actually carried out, or if it was more of a bogeyman, a terrifying story told to ensure compliance. The evidence suggests that, on at least a handful of occasions over Rome's long history, it was very real. Why are you telling us this? Another novice asks, her voice trembling. Because you must understand, Cornelia says, her eyes sweeping over your young faces. You must understand the true weight of the robes you wear. Our vows are not a game. Our purity is not our own. It is a fortress that protects Rome. If there is a breach in the wall, it must be sealed, no matter the cost. Do not be post-UMIA. Be a strong stone in the wall. Be silent. Be vigilant. Be humble. That is the path to honor. The other path leads only to the evil field. That night, you lie awake in your bed, the story of post-UMIA replaying in your mind, the image of the underground room, The single lamb, this slow, lonely death, is a horror that will stay with you forever. It is the ultimate cautionary tale. It transforms the abstract concept of your vow into a terrifying, tangible reality. You think of the sacred flame in the temple. It is a symbol of life, warmth, and continuity. The love burial is its perfect, horrifying opposite, a symbol of cold, darkness, and a life cut short. Your duty is to serve the one to avoid the other. The lesson is brutal, but it is unforgettable. You are a keeper of the light, and you must never, ever allow the darkness to creep in. The grim story of post-UMIA serves its purpose. It instills in you and the other junior Vest a lesser renewed sense of gravity and focus. Your duties, from the grinding of the molar salsa to the long hours of the night watch, are performed with a quiet, solemn intensity. Then comes the month of June, and with it, the Vestae, the week-long festival dedicated to your goddess. For most of the year, you are a revered but background presence in the city. During Vestae, you are thrust into the spotlight. The entire city turns its attention to you and your temple. The festival begins with the official opening of the inner sanctum of the Temple of Vesta, the Panis Vestae, to the women of Rome. For this 1 week, and this week only, married matrons, dressed in simple, humble robes and walking barefoot, are allowed to enter the temple and make offerings to the goddess. You and your sister Vesta less than the days leading up to the festival in a flurry of preparation. The temple must be ritually cleansed and decorated. Extra molas also must be prepared. It is a busy, exciting time, a break from the usual, slow Minos-based routine. On the first day of the festival, you stand as a silent, white Minos-robed guardian as a long, solemn procession of Roman matrons approaches the temple. They move slowly, their heads bowed, their faces serious. They come to pray for the well-Minos being of their own homes and families, to seek the blessing of the goddess who represents the sanctity of the hearth. As they file past you, you see in their faces a deep and genuine reverence. They look at you not with envy, but with a kind of awe. You are the ultimate embodiment of the domestic purity they all aspire to. For a week, the temple is filled with the murmur of prayers and the smell of offerings of milk, oil, and simple seed Minos cakes. You are the host of the city as women, a strange and temporary role. You see mothers with their daughters, and you can't help but think of your own mother, who is likely somewhere in the crowd, though you cannot seek her out. The high point of the festival, for the city, is the procession of the bakers and millers. On this day, the men who grind the city's grain and bake its bread have a holiday. They form a joyful, raucous parade through the city. They decorate their donkeys, the animals that turn the heavy millstones, with garlands of flowers and strings of bread rolls. It is a celebration of the city's daily bread, a link between the sacred sustenance of the molar salsa you create and the profane, but essential, sustenance of the common people. This festival is a fascinating example of how Roman religion connected the state, the family, and the economy. The Vestals, the state, provided the sacred prototype of ground grain, which was celebrated by the bakers, the economy, to ensure the sanctity of the bread eaten in every Roman household, the family. It was a beautifully integrated system of belief. But for you, the most significant and strangest part of the Vestae is the honor you receive. You are celebrated, but from a distance. You are the center of attention, but you are not part of the celebration. While the city feasts and parades, you are still bound to your duties. The sacred fire does not take a holiday. The night watches continue. There is a strange and little Minos known custom associated with the Vestae that perfectly captures your unique position. During this week, special bread was baked, some say by the Vestals themselves, and hung on the stalls of the Forum. This bread was not to be eaten by humans. It was an offering, at the end of the festival, in a final purification rite. This bread, along with all the sweepings from the temple for the entire year, was gathered up and ceremonial thrown into the Tiber River from the Pompilius, one of Rome's oldest bridges. The ritual was called quando seas de lotiu emphas, or when the dung may be removed with impunity. It was a symbolic spring mine, screening of the city's spiritual house. As you stand on the bridge, watching the accumulated dust and sacred refuse of your year-long labor being cast into the river, you feel a sense of release and renewal. It is a physical manifestation of the closing of a chapter, the wiping clean of a slate. But the festival also reinforces your isolation. You are the guest of honor at a party you cannot truly attend. The joyful, chaotic energy of the city during Vestal highlights the serene, control, and lonely nature of your own existence. You are an object of veneration, a living statue. The people honor you. They celebrate your role, but they do not, and cannot, understand your life. As the festival ends and the temple returns to its usual profound quiet, you feel a mixture of relief and a faint, lingering sadness. The brief connection with the wider world of Roman women is severed. You are once again alone with your 5 sisters and your eternal, watchful duty. The Vestae is a powerful reminder of your importance, but it is also a powerful reminder of the immense, unbridgeable gap that separates you from the people you serve. As you mature into your role, you learn that the sacred fire, for all its immense importance, is not the only secret you are tasked with guarding. The Temple of Vestae is more than just a hearth. It is a vault, hidden deep within its innermost sanctum, a space so holy that not even the Pontifex Maximus may enter, or a collection of sacred objects, the Pagan or Emperor, the pledges of Roman rule. Knowledge of these objects is passed down orally from the senior Vest, to the juniors, as they prove themselves worthy of the trust. It is not written down anywhere. The secrets are kept within the minds and hearts of your small sisterhood. One quiet afternoon, Cornelia, the eldest and most venerable of the Vestals, takes you aside. She has decided that you are ready. The fire is the soul of Rome, the motive, she says, her voice low. It is the life that must be nurtured. But in the penance, in the sanctum, we guard the body as well, the objects that bind the fatum, the destiny of our city, to this very spot. She tells you the legend. When the city of Troy fell, the hero Aeneas, the mythical ancestor of the Roman people, fled the burning city. He carried with him not just his family, but several sacred objects from the Trojan temples. These relics were passed down through the generations and eventually brought to Rome, where they were placed in the care of the Vestals. As long as these objects remain safe and hidden in your temple, Rome cannot fall. The identity of these objects is the most closely guarded secret in all of Rome. Cornelia tells you that no one living knows for sure what all of them are. To even look upon them is forbidden. Even for you, your duty is not to see them, but to ensure they are never seen. You are the guardian of a mystery. However, legend and Numa provide some clues. The most famous of these secret relics is the Palladium. It is said to be a small, archaic wooden statue of the goddess Athena, which fell from the heavens and guaranteed the safety of Troy as long as it remained in the city. The Greek heroes Odysseus and Diomedes had to steal it before they could finally conquer Troy. But, according to the Roman version of the story, the one they stole was a copy. Aeneas managed to rescue the true Palladium and to bring it to Italy. This story of the Palladium is a fascinating piece of religious propaganda. By claiming to possess the true Trojan relic, Rome was positioning itself as the legitimate heir to the great Trojan civilization, giving its rule a sense of ancient, divinely ordained legitimacy. The historical debate, of course, is whether any such object ever existed. It was likely a powerful founding myth, but for the Romans, its reality was unquestioned. Its presence in your temple was a cornerstone of their confidence. Cornelia tells you of other, stranger objects rumored to be in the sanctum. The ashes of Orestes, the son of King Agamemnon, the Terratoka chariot of the Veii people, and Etruscan relic, the scepter of Priam, the last king of Troy. The list is a strange collection of mythical artifacts, a physical link to the heroic age. Your duty to these objects is mostly passive. You must simply ensure the temple is secure and that no unauthorized person ever approaches the sanctum. But this knowledge adds another, heavier layer to your responsibilities. You are not just guarding a flame, you are guarding the city's destiny, its magical tailmusums. The security of the empire rests, not just on its legions and its laws, but on a handful of unseen, ancient objects hidden in a small room behind the eternal fire. There's a strange and telling detail about the security of the Penis. In 241 BC, the temple caught fire. The Pontifex Maximus of the time, Lucius Caecilius Metellus, in a moment of heroic piety, rushed into the burning building to save the sacred objects. He succeeded, but the sight of the relics blinded him, as no man was ever meant to see them. He was celebrated as a hero, and granted the rare privilege of being allowed to ride to the Senate house in a chariot, but he remained blind for the rest of his life. This story, whether true or not, served as a powerful deterrent to anyone who might be tempted to try and see the relics for themselves. The mystery was protected by a divine curse. This new knowledge changes the way you see the temple. It is no longer just a place of warmth and light. It is a place of deep, ancient secrets, of hidden power. When you stand your watch at night, you are not just facing the flame. Your back is to a locked door, and behind that door lies the very soul of Rome. The responsibility is immense, almost too large to comprehend, but it is also a source of quiet strength. You are a part of something far older and more important than yourself. You are a guardian of mysteries, a keeper of legends. Your small, cloistered life is connected by an invisible thread to the fall of Troy, the flight of Aeneas, and the founding of your great city. The weight of this knowledge settles into you, not as a burden, but as a kind of ballast, keeping you steady and focused on your endless, sacred task. As the years pass, you transition from a serving priestess into a senior Vestal, a teacher and an administrator. With this seniority comes a new and unique responsibility, one that demonstrates the extraordinary trust placed in you not just by the gods, but by the men who rule Rome. You become a keeper of wills. One afternoon, a litter, far more opulent than any you have seen before, stops outside the Atrium Vestae. From it emerges Marcus Licinius Crassus, a man whose name is spoken with a mixture of awe and fear throughout the city. He is a powerful senator, a former consul, and widely considered to be the wealthiest man in Rome. His power is immense, but he is also a man with many enemies. He requests a private audience. You meet him not in the temple, but in a formal reception room within your house. He is an older man, but his eyes are sharp and calculated. He dismisses his attendants, and you are left alone with him. He comes straight to the point. "I have made a new will," he says, producing a tightly rolled scroll, sealed with his family death's intricate signet ring. My current copy is lodged with my lawyers, but I trust them only as far as I can pay them. My sons are ambitious. If I were to die tomorrow, there would be a war over my estate that would make the legions blush. He holds out the scroll to you. "I wish to deposit my true and final will with you, in the temple of Vesta. Here, I know it will be safe. It will not be stolen. It will not be tampered with, and it will not be revealed until the moment of my death." You accept the scroll. It feels heavy in your hand, weighted with the immense fortune and the complex family drama it represents. You give him a solemn nod. You do not give him a written receipt. The transaction is based entirely on the sacred trust of your office. His will is now under the protection of the goddess Vesta. This practice of lodging wills and other important legal documents with the Vestals was a unique and vital function of your order. In a city rife with political intrigue, corruption, and contested inheritances, the house of the Vestals was the one institution that was considered to be completely impartial and inculpate. You were, in essence, the city's most secure safe minus deposit box. Why were you trusted so completely? Historians point to several factors. Firstly, your religious status placed you above the political fray. You had no personal stake in the secular power struggles of the city. Secondly, your vow of chastity meant you had no direct heirs. No ambitious sons or scheming daughters whose inheritance you might be tempted to favor. You were seen as neutral arbiters. Finally, the supernatural dread associated with your temple and its secrets provided the ultimate security. What thief, would dare to break into the house of the Vestals and risk the wrath of the goddess, and the terrifying punishment of the state, just to steal a will? This role as keeper of documents gave you a strange and intimate insight into the lives of Rome's elite. You became the silent confidant to their most secret financial and family arrangements. The wills of Julius Caesar, of Augustus, of Mark Antony all were, at one time or another, entrusted to the care of your predecessors. You take Crassus' will and place it in a special archive, a dry, secure room within the temple complex, filled with shelves of similar scrolls. Each one represents a story of power, wealth, and family anxieties. Your duty is not to read them, but simply to guard them. You are a living vault. There is a famous historical incident involving this very practice that highlights the immense political importance of your role. During the bitter power struggle between Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, and Mark Antony, Octavian committed a shocking act of sacrilege. He went to the temple of Vesta and forcibly seized Mark Antony's will, which had been deposited with you. He then read it aloud to the Senate. The will supposedly contained details of Antony's devotion to the foreign queen Cleopatra and his wishes to be buried in Egypt, all of which Octavian used as powerful propaganda to turn public opinion against him. The act was a massive scandal. While it was politically effective, Octavian was widely condemned for violating the sanctity of the temple and betraying the sacred trust placed in the Vestals. The debate still rages among historians. Was the will he read real? Or was it a forgery he created after the fact to justify his sacrilege? We will never know for sure, but the incident demonstrates that your quiet, cloistered house could, at times, become the unlikely epicenter of Roman political drama. After Crassus leaves, you return to your duties. You check on the sacred flame. You oversee the novices grinding the molus ulcer. Your life is a world away from the political machinations and family feuds detailed in the scrolls you guard. But your role as their keeper connects your two worlds. You are the still point in the turning world of Rome. Your temple provides the stability and trust that allows the chaotic, ambitious, and often treacherous society outside your walls to function. You are more than just a priestess. You are a notary, a banker, a registrar. You are a pillar of the Roman legal and social order, and the source of your power is not wealth or military might, but something far more rare, the absolute, unshakable trust you command. The decades pass, marked not by years, but by the turning of the festival calendar, the selection of new novices, and the honorable retirement of senior sisters. You have served through the rise and fall of great men, witnessed triumphs and riots from your window on the Forum, and held the last wishes of consuls in your hands. You are now the Virgo Vestal is Maximus, the chief Vestal, the head of the college. The title feels as natural to you as your own name. The duties are still the same. The fire still needs to be fed. The water still needs to be drawn. The molus also still needs to be ground. But your relationship to these tasks has changed completely. The terror you felt on your first night watch is a distant, almost unrecognizable memory, like a story you heard about someone else. The fear has been replaced by a deep, instinctual, and profoundly comforting routine. You no longer need to consciously think about how to stack the logs or read the flame. Your body knows. Your hands move with an unthinking grace, a muscle memory honed by tens of thousands of hours of practice. Tending the fire is no longer a source of anxiety. It is a source of peace. It is like breathing. You are not just keeping the fire alive. The fire is keeping you alive, anchoring you in a state of constant, meditative presence. The nightly watches, once a struggle against the leaden weight of sleep, are now periods of quiet contemplation in the deep silence of the temple. With the flame crackling softly beside you, your mind feels clearer than at any other time. You are alone, but you are not lonely. You are in the presence of the goddess, in the heart of Rome, in the center of your own being. The solitude is no longer a burden. It is a privilege. You watch the cycle of life in the Atrium Vestae with a serene detachment. You see the young novices arrive, their faces filled with the same mixture of fear and awe that you once felt. You see them struggle with the weight of the Vestals, their arms aching. You see their eyes widen with terror as they prepare for their first night watch. You see yourself in them, a reflection across the chasm of time. Your role now is to be for them what Cornelia was for you. You are the calm center, the steady hand, the voice of quiet reassurance. You teach them the rituals, not just the physical motions, but the inner meaning. You tell them the ancient stories, the cautionary tales, and the tales of honor. You do not tell them not to be afraid. Instead, you teach them how to transform their fear into vigilance, their anxiety into devotion. The constant rhythm of your duties has had a profound effect on your perception of time itself. For the people outside your walls, time is a series of chaotic, unpredictable events. A war, a play, a political scandal. Their lives are measured in crises and triumphs. Your life is measured in the steady, predictable cycles of ritual, the daily feeding of the flame, the monthly festivals, the annual changing of the sacred grain. This rhythmic, cyclical time is a powerful antidote to the linear, crisis-driven time of the secular world. It creates a sense of stability and timelessness. Some philosophers and historians have argued that this is one of the core functions of ritual in all human societies. It creates a predictable, ordered world in the face of an unpredictable and chaotic universe. It gives participants a sense of control, a feeling that they are actively maintaining the cosmic order. Your entire life has been an embodiment of this principle. You have not just been performing rituals. You have been living inside one. There's a subtle but significant detail in the way the Romans tracked their years. They were named after the two consuls who held office that year. So, a Roman might speak of the year of the consulship of Cicero and Antonius. This system rooted their calendar in the shifting, often turbulent, world of polity. The Vestals, however, also measured time by the reign of each Virgo Maxima. Within the walls of your house, time was marked by the steady, 30-year service of your spiritual mothers, not by the fleeting, 1-year terms of ambitious men. It was a different, more stable calendar for a different, more stable world. You look at your hands. They are wrinkled and thin now, the skin like old parchment, but they are steady. They do not tremble when they hold the sacred tongues to place a log on the fire. They are the hands of a woman who has found her purpose and has fulfilled it, day after day, season after season, decade after decade. The initial terror, the long years of discipline, the endless repetition, it has all been a kind of spiritual alchemy, transforming a frightened child into a woman of unshakable peace. The rhythm of the flame has become the rhythm of your own heart. You are standing in the peristyle garden, watching a new girl. Her name is Lucia. She is 8 years old, chosen just last week from the ancient Fabia family. She is trying to learn how to properly polish a bronze ore vessel, just as you did what feels like 1,000 years ago. Her small hands are clumsy, her movements uncertain. Her brow is furrowed in a deep V of concentration and frustration. Her lower lip trembles, just slightly. In her, you see a perfect, painful echo of yourself. You remember the feeling of the cold bronze, the unfamiliar weight of the polishing cloth, the overwhelming sense of being small and lost in a vast, silent, and demanding new world. You remember the ache in your heart for the home you had lost, a grief so sharp it felt like a physical wound. Your first instinct, as the Virgo Maxima, is to approach her with the calm, authoritative air of your office, to correct the angle of her hands, to remind her of the importance of the task. That is what the woman who taught you would have done. That is the way of the Vestals. But you hesitate. You see the tear that she is trying so desperately to hide, the one that finally escapes and traces a slow, clean path through the grime on her cheek. And in that moment, your heart is touched not by the duty of a chief Vestal, but by a simpler, more human impulse. You walk over to her, your footsteps soft on the stone flags. You kneel down beside her, a gesture that surprises even yourself. Kneeling is for the goddess, not for a novice. You take the cloth from her small, trembling hand. It is difficult at first, you say, your voice softer than you intended. The curve of the bronze is tricky, invites you. You begin to polish the vessel, your own gnarled hands moving with the slow, sure grace of long practice. You don't instruct, you simply do. You show her the rhythm, the gentle pressure, the circular motion that brings forth the deep, warm gleam of the metal. Lucia watches you, her eyes wide. My mother had a bronze mirror, she whispers, her voice thick with unshed tears. It shone like this. She let me hold it sometimes. She must have been very proud when the Pontifex Maximus chose you. You reply gently, keeping your eyes on your work. She cried, Lucia says, her voice barely audible. Yes, you say, mine did, too. It is a great honor, but it is also a great sadness. It is both things at once. It is all right to feel them both. This conversation is a small, but significant, breach of the unspoken rules of your order. You are not supposed to dwell on the past, on the families you have left behind. The focus is always on the duty, on the future of your service. But looking at this small, grieving child, you realize that compassion is also a sacred duty. You cannot build a strong priestess on a foundation of unaccompanied sorrow. You must allow the child to grieve before the woman can serve. The historical perception of the Vestals is often one of stern, unfeeling paragons of virtue. They are seen as symbols, not as people, but this view is almost certainly incomplete. A community of 6 women, living in close, isolated quarters for their entire adult lives, must have formed deep and complex emotional bonds. They were sisters, mothers, and daughters to one another, while the official ideology was one of stoic, selfless service. The day-to-day reality was likely filled with the same small acts of kindness, mentorship, and emotional support that define any human family. You finish polishing the vessel and hand it back to Lucia. It gleams in the afternoon sun. Now you try, you say with a small smile. She takes it, and her hands, though still clumsy, move with a new sense of purpose. She is imitating your rhythm, your gentleness. She is no longer just fighting with a stubborn piece of metal. She is participating in a tradition, a lineage of touch passed from one hand to another. This moment is a turning point for you as well. For decades, your focus has been on the rituals, on the perfect execution of your duties. You have strived to be a flawless priestess. Now, in the final decade of your service, you realize that your most important duty is not to the fire, but to the girls who will tend it after you are gone. Your legacy will not be in how perfectly you have polished the bronze, but in how you taught the next generation to do it with a heart that is not just dutiful, but whole. You are no longer just the keeper of the flame. You are the keeper of the keep. You are a gardener, tending not to a fire, but to the small, fragile saplings that will one day become the strong oaks at the temple. It is a subtle shift in perspective, but it is profound. It is the final, and perhaps most important, lesson the goddess has to teach you. The sacred flame is not just made of wood and air. It is made of the courage, the grief, and the quiet, resilient strength of the women who serve it. The Rome you see from your window on the Forum is changing. The city has always been a place of flux, of rising and falling fortunes. But this change feels different. It is deeper, more fundamental. It is a change in the very soul of the city. It starts with whispers. You hear them from the market vendors, from the gossip of the slaves who clean your residence. They speak of a new god, a strange faith from the dusty province of Judea. It is a religion of a single, all-minus powerful deity, a god who demands exclusive devotion. They call themselves Christians. At first, they are a small, secretive sect, mostly confined to the poorer quarters of the city and the slave population. They are viewed with suspicion. Their refusal to participate in the public rituals, to offer a pinch of incense to the divine spirit of the emperor, is seen as a fearsome, as a dangerous act of civic disobedience. There are sporadic persecutions. You hear stories of these Christians being arrested, thrown to the lions in the Colosseum as a grim form of public entertainment. From your honored seat at the games, you may have even witnessed it, seeing their strange, ecstatic courage in the face of death. Then, over the decades, the whispers grow louder. The new faith does not die out. It spreads. It moves from the slave quarters to the artisan class, then to the merchant houses, and even, shockingly, into the ranks of the nobility. You see the evidence yourself. a powerful senator's wife, a woman who once came to the Vestae every year, no longer appears. You hear she has embraced the new god. You see small, secret symbols, like a fish, scratched onto walls in the city's back alleys. The change is not just religious, it is cultural. The Christians have their own way of life. They have their own network of charity, looking after their own poor and sick. They have their own sense of community, one that transcends the traditional Roman distinctions of class and origin. Their faith seems to offer something that the old gods do not: a personal relationship with the divine, a promise of salvation and eternal life, and a moral code that resonates with a city growing weary of the old, often cynical, power games. From your perspective, it is all very strained. Your religion is one of public duty, of ritual action, of maintaining the pax deorum for the good of the state. It is a religion of orthopraxy, right practice. This new faith is a religion of orthodoxy, right belief, the state of a person's inner soul. Their personal belief in a historical event is more important than their public participation in the ancient rites. It is a completely different way of understanding the relationship between humanity and the divine. Historians have debated for centuries why this new faith, one of many mystery cults that flowed into Rome from the east, was the one that ultimately triumphed. Was it the appeal of its message, the efficiency of its organization, the political savvy of its leaders, or was it simply in the right place at the right time, offering answers to questions that the old Roman religion was no longer equipped to address? The slow decline of the traditional pagan cults was a complex process, driven by a confluence of social, economic, and spiritual factors. You feel the effects of this change in subtle ways. There is a little less reverence in the eyes of the crowds as you pass. The number of matrons attending the Vestal IA seems to slightly dwindle each year. The donations to the temple, once lavish, become more modest. The old certainties are beginning to fray at the edges. One day, a young novice comes to you, her face troubled. She tells you that her own brother has secretly converted to the Christian faith. He has been urging her to abandon her vows, telling her that the gods of Rome are false idols, demons leading the city to damnation. He has told her of a single, loving God who offers forgiveness and a place in paradise. You do not know how to respond. For centuries, the worldview of a Vestal has been absolute. The gods are real. The rituals are necessary. The safety of Rome is paramount. Now, for the first time, a direct challenge to that worldview has penetrated the sacred walls of your own house. You comfort the novice. You remind her of the sanctity of her vows. But for the first time in your long life, you feel a flicker of uncertainty. The sacred fire in the temple burns as brightly as ever. Your hands tend it with the same practiced devotion. The rituals continue, unchanged for 1,000 years. But outside the temple, a new fire is spreading through the city, a fire of fervent, passionate belief, and you begin to wonder, in the deep, silent hours of your war, which flame will ultimately prove to be the stronger, which fire will light the future of Rome, and which will be left to fade into a cold, forgotten ash. The ground is shifting beneath the foundations of your temple. The change, which for decades was a slow, creeping tide, becomes a tidal wave. In the early part of the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine, after winning a decisive battle, declares his own conversion to the Christian faith. The symbol of the cross, once a mark of shame and execution, is now emblazoned on the standards of the Roman legions. The news sends a shockwave through the empire, but its most profound impact is felt here, in the city of Rome, the ancient heart of pagan tradition. The emperor, the Pontifex Maximus, the man who is the head of your own religious college, has turned his back on the gods who were said to have made Rome great. At first, the old ways and the new exist in an uneasy truce. Constantine, a shrewd politician, does not immediately outlaw the pagan cults. He understands that the traditions are too deeply rooted, especially among the old senatorial families, to be eradicated overnight. The sacrifices continue. The temple festivals are still observed. You and your sister Vestals continue your duties. But the balance of power has irrevocably shifted. The imperial treasury, which for centuries had generously funded the temples and priesthoods, now diverts its vast resources to the building of magnificent new churches. The Basilica of St. Peter is constructed on the Vatican Hill, a monumental declaration of the new faith's ascendancy. You feel the change in a very practical way. The estates and lands that have been owned by the Temple of Vesta for centuries, providing the income for your upkeep, are now subject to new taxes. The public funds once allocated for the purchase of sacred oil and fine oak for the fire are reduced to a trickle, and then stop altogether. You are now expected to be self-sufficient, to maintain the eternal flame on a shoestring budget. The Atrium Vestae, once a place of immense prestige, begins to feel like a relic of a bygone era. The powerful men of Rome no longer come to deposit their wills with you. They entrust them to the city's new bishops, the powerful and politically connected leaders of the Christian Church. Your role as the city's trusted notary has been usurped. You see other, more direct signs of the changing times. One afternoon, you watch from your window as a crew of workmen, acting on an official decree, begins to remove the altar of Victory from the Senate House. This altar, a statue of the winged goddess Victory, has stood in the Curia for centuries. It was the spot where senators took their oaths, a potent symbol of the divine favor that blessed the Roman state. A heated debate has raged in the Senate over its removal, with the old pagan senators making eloquent, desperate pleas for the preservation of their heritage. They lose. The altar is carried away, a clear and public statement that the state no longer seeks the favor of the old gods. The historical figure who led this charge was St. Ambrose, the powerful bishop of Milan. His arguments against the pagan traditionalists, like the Senatus Immocus, are a fascinating window into this moment of profound cultural conflict. Symmachus argued for tradition, for the idea that the ancient customs, which had served Rome so well for so long, should be respected. What does it matter by which path each man seeks the truth? He famously pleaded. It is not by one road alone that we can arrive at so great a mystery. Ambrose's response was uncompromising. He argued that there was only one truth, one road, and that the state had a duty to support the true faith and abandon its past errors. Ambrose, you prevail. The age of religious pluralism was ending, and an age of religious orthodoxy was beginning. You and your sisters are now in a precarious position. You are priestesses of a faith that has been abandoned by the state you are sworn to serve. You are living symbols of a past that the new powers deem to be a mistake, an era of darkness before the coming of the Christian light. The younger novices are confused and frightened. They ask you questions you cannot answer. Why has the emperor forsaken Vesta? Are the old gods truly dead? What is the purpose of your service, if the city no longer values it? You try to maintain the discipline of the house. You insist that the rituals be performed with the same precision and reverence as always. The foyer, you tell them, does not care about the faith of the emperor. Its needs are constant. Your vow is to the goddess, not to the man who holds the title of Pontifex Maximus. But it is a struggle. A deep sense of futility begins to creep into the atmosphere of the house. You are tending a sacred hearth in a home that is no longer cherished by its owner. You are guardians of a tradition that is being deliberately starved into extinction. The serene, timeless world of the Atrium Vestae has been breached, not by an army, but by an idea. And against this new idea, your ancient rituals seem to have no defense. The neglect is no longer subtle. It is a stark, daily reality. The roof of the Atrium Vestae, once meticulously maintained by the state, now leaks when it rains. The mosaic floors, once pristine, are cracked and missing tiles. The gardens, once beautifully manicured, are overgrown with weed. The house is slowly, gracefully, falling into ruin around you. The most painful neglect, however, is felt in the heart of your world, the temple itself. The supply of high quality, properly seasoned oak wood, once guaranteed by state contract, has long since dried up. You are now forced to make do with whatever you can find or afford. You send the house servants to scavenge for fallen branches in the sacred groves outside the city, but the wood is often green or damp. When you place this inferior wood on the sacred fire, it does not burn with the clean, bright flame you are used to. It molders, it spits and hisses. It produces a thick, acrid smoke that stings your eyes and fills the small temple with a grey haze. The fire, which for 1,000 years has been a symbol of pure, unwavering light, now seems sullen and sickly. Tending it has become a constant struggle. The embers are weak, and the fire is always on the verge of going out, not from a moment of negligence, but from a lack of proper fuel. The night watches, once a serene and meditative duty, are now filled with a low level, constant anxiety. You find yourself feeding the fire far more often, trying to coax the damp wood to catch, nursing the weak flame like a desperate physician with a dying patient. The number of Vestals has also dwindled. When a senior sister completes her 30 years of service and retires, there is no great ceremony to select a new child from a noble family. The noble families of Rome, most of whom have now converted to Christianity, are no longer willing to offer their daughters to a declining pagan cult. The office, once the highest honor a woman could achieve, is now seen as an anachronism, a commitment to a lost cause. You're left with only 3 sisters. A community that was always meant to have 6 members now feels hollowed out. Empty. The workload, which was once shared among many, now falls on the shoulders of a few. You are all old women now. Your bodies weary from a lifetime of service, and the strain is beginning to show. One of your sisters, a woman named Prisca, develops a deep, rattling cough from the constant exposure to the smoke-filled temple. Her health begins to fail. You nurse her as best you can, but without proper physicians who will not enter the sacred precinct, there is little you can do. This practical reality of the decline of paganism is something often overlooked in the grand historical narratives. It wasn't just a war of ideas. It was a slow, grinding process of institutional decay. The priesthoodess withered not just because they lost believers, but because they lost funding, they lost personnel, and they lost the basic infrastructure needed to perform their ancient rites. The gods were not defeated in a single, epic battle. The houses were simply allowed to fall apart, brick by brick. There is a poignant archaeological detail that speaks to this era. Excavations of pagan temples from the late Roman period often reveal evidence of squatters, poor families, or artisans who moved into the disused parts of the temple complexes, setting up makeshift homes and workshops amidst the crumbling statues and colonnades. The sacred spaces of the old world were being repurposed, absorbed into the mundane life of the new. One evening, you are on watch alone. Prisca is too ill, and your other 2 sisters are exhausted. The fire is burning particularly poorly, the damp wood filling the temple with a choking smoke. You are trying to coax a new log to catch, your eyes streaming, when you hear a voice from the entryway. It is a Christian preacher, a man with a wild beard and eyes that burn with a zealous fire. He stands at the threshold of the temple, a place no man is supposed to approach. But the old fears, the old reverences, are gone. He sees not a sacred sanctum, but a den of demons. "Woman," he cries, his voice echoing in the small, round space. "Why do you labor in service of this false idol? Why do you choke on the smoke of a demon's hearth? The true light has come into the world. Abandon this folly, repent, and seek the salvation of the Christ." You stare at him, too shocked and weary to respond. A few years ago, such an act of sacrilege would have had him arrested and flogged. No, no one cares. The city guards who patrol the forum simply walk past, indifferent. You do not argue with him. You do not have the strength. You simply turn your back on him and focus on your task. You gently blow on the weak embers, trying to breathe life back into the dying flame. The preacher's voice fades as he moves on, seeking other souls to save. You are left alone in the smoky twilight of the temple, the sound of your own labored breathing mixing with the weak crackle of the fire. You feel a profound sense of defeat. The neglect is no longer just a matter of leaking roofs and dwindling funds. It is a spiritual neglect. The world has forgotten you. The sacred fire is faltering, not because you have failed in your duty, but because the world itself no longer believes that your duty matters. The year is 391 AD. The emperor is Theodosius, a devout and zealous Christian. He is not a man for half-minded measures or uneasy compromises. He issues a series of decrees that will echo through history. All pagan temples within the Roman Empire are to be closed. All public funds for their upkeep are to be permanently cut off. All sacrifices and public rituals to the old gods are declared illegal. The end does not come as a dramatic confrontation. It comes as a quiet, official notice, delivered by a bored-looking civic functionary. He reads the imperial decree to you in a flat, monotone voice. The temple of Vestae is to be decommissioned. Your service is terminated. The sacred fire is to be extinguished. The words hang in the air, heavy and unbelievable. Extinguished. A fire that has burned for over 1,000 years. A flame that was kindled, according to legend, by the founder of Rome himself. A light that has survived civil wars, Gallic invasions, and the great fire of Nero's reign. It is to be put out by a simple administrative order. Your two remaining sisters stand beside you, their faces pale and etched with a grief too deep for tears. Prisca, your sick sister, had passed away during the winter. There are only 3 of you left, the last of the Vestals. The functionary looks at you, a flicker of pity in his eyes. The state will provide you with a small pension, he says, as if that could possibly matter. You are free to go. The house will be sealed tomorrow at sunset. He leaves. You are left alone in the silent, cavernous atrium, the decree lying on the table like a death sentence. What do you do? There is no one to appeal to. The Senate, long stripped of its real power, is helpless. The old noble families who once defended your traditions are either converted or cowed into silence. The world has moved on. You are an island of the past, and the tide has finally submerged you. You spend the day in a daze, walking through the empty halls of your home. You touch the cool marble of the statues of your predecessors, a long line of women whose life's work is about to be undone. You look out the window at the Forum, a place that now feels utterly alien to you. As dusk approaches, you know what you must do. The 3 of you, the last Vestals, walk together into the round temple for the final time. The fire is burning low, a small, sad flicker in the gloom. It is waiting for its nightly feeding, a meal that will never come. You stand before the hearth, the 3 of you, a trinity of forgotten priestesses. For over 1,000 years, women have stood on this very spot, in an unbroken chain, performing the sacred duty. You are the end of that chain. The responsibility that has been passed down through countless generations dies with you. There is no prescribed ritual for this. No one ever imagined it would be necessary. You must devise your own. You take the bronze tongs, the same tool you have used 100,000 times to feed the flame. But this time, your task is to undo, to deconstruct. Gently, you begin to separate the smoldering logs. You pull them apart, scattering the glowing embers across the cold stone of the hearth. The embers, starved of their collective heat, begin to fade. The golden glow shrinks, turning to a dull red, then to a faint, pulsing orange. The room grows darker and colder. The shadows, which have always been held at bay by the fire's light, creep in, swallowing the familiar curves of the temple. You watch the last ember. It is a tiny, stubborn point of light, a final, defiant spark of forgotten world. It glows for a moment, a pinpoint of red in the absolute darkness, and then, with a final, imperceptible sigh, it winks out. It is done. The silence that follows is unlike any silence you have ever known. It is not the peaceful, reverent silence of the living temple. It is a dead, empty silence. The cold is immediate and profound. The soul of the temple, the presence that has warmed this space for a millennium, is gone. You are standing in a cold, empty stone hut. The historical accounts of this moment are sparse and conflicting. Some say the last Vestals defiantly kept the fire burning in secret for a few more years. The poet Prudentius wrote a tridomitless Christian poem describing the virgins' sad chorus being driven from their hearth. The truth is likely what you have just experienced, a quiet, sorrowful, and ultimately bureaucratic end. The fire wasn't vanquished in a blaze of glory. It was simply, thus continue. There is a final, heart-wrenching detail. Before you leave, you go to the penance, the inner sanctum. For the first and only time, you open the door. You must rescue what you can. You cannot leave the sacred pledges of empire to be looted or desecrated. In the dim light from the doorway, you see them, a small, strange collection of ancient, mysterious objects. You gather them up, wrapping them in a linen cloth. Their future is uncertain. Perhaps they will be hidden elsewhere, their legend living on. Perhaps they will be lost to history. You walk out of the temple and into the twilight. You do not look back. You have kept your vow for your entire life. You did not let the fire go out. It was taken from you. Your watch is finally, and forever, over. You live out the rest of your days in a small, quiet house on the edge of